Find the derivative of g of t equals the cosine of pi times the tangent of t. Then evaluate g prime of pi over 4. G of t here is made up of a trig function, the cosine of an entire expression, pi tangent t. Therefore, when we take the derivative, we'll have to use the chain rule. G prime of t will be, the outermost function is the cosine. The derivative of cosine is negative sine. We leave the entire inside of the trig function alone for now, but then we take the derivative of the inside to complete the chain rule. Pi is just a constant, so it comes along with the derivative, and the derivative of tangent is secant squared. Now when you do the chain rule, none of this stuff is inside the trig function. It's outside of it. You do not multiply it with that pi tangent t, which is inside the trig function of sine. The rest of it is not. Instead, it can move to the front with the negative sign, and we can rewrite g prime of t as negative pi secant squared of t, when we move that to the front, and then sine of pi tangent t. There's our derivative g prime of t. The next thing to do is evaluate g prime of pi over 4. So g prime of pi over 4 means to plug a pi over 4 in for each of the t's, and we have negative pi secant squared of pi over 4, and then multiply that with the sine of pi times the tangent of pi over 4. So we have negative pi. Secant squared means to evaluate the secant first and then square the result. And then we have the sine of pi times the tangent of pi over 4. Now the tangent of pi over 4 is the sine of pi over 4, root 2 over 2, over the cosine of pi over 4, also root 2 over 2. The root 2 over 2's can cancel, then the tangent of pi over 4 is a 1. So this will be pi times 1, or just pi. So we have negative pi times the secant of pi over 4, which is the reciprocal of the cosine of pi over 4. Cosine of pi over 4 is root 2 over 2. The secant will just be that reciprocated, or 2 over root 2. Flip it upside down. Quantity squared. The sine of pi actually is a 0. So all this is going to multiply 0. 0 times anything comes out to 0, so our derivative g prime at pi over 4 will equal to 0.